Hey all, I thought I would share a little tutorial on how I am using my Boss GT1000 as a MIDI controller for my new Quad Cortex. I've not really used the GT1000 as much as I probably should have, and I had it lying around gathering dust. And I was looking into getting MIDI controllers to run my Quad Cortex up on the table here while being able to still do functions with my foot switches. And I looked at solutions, and some of them were pretty expensive, and some just didn't work very well. And but if you look at the Quad Cortex, it has 11 buttons, and GT1000 has 10, and has an expression pedal built into it. So, I came up with a little solution to use it as a MIDI controller that works pretty well for my needs. So in order to do this, you have to connect the MIDI cables between the GT1000 and the Quad Cortex, where you have the Quad Cortex as the MIDI in, and you use the GT1000 as the MIDI out. And of course, you have to go in settings and verify that your MIDI settings, you set your receive and transmit channels. I chose 16 because I have other MIDI controllers that are using lower channels on my computer, so I just use 16 to make sure it's clear. Make sure the transmission channel is the same. I turned off MIDI through on this, and USB through is off. No internal sync clock off, and then just program mode. Page 2 has the MIDI settings that you can send to the GT1000 from some other MIDI controller, so we'll ignore those. And they have MIDI program maps, which we really won't use. This allows you to send MIDI PC commands in order to choose certain presets and banks. We won't be using that either. So those are really the two things that you want. This is the main thing that you want to set up on the GT1000. Now, of course, on the Quad Cortex, you also have to set up its MIDI channels. And so you go under settings to MIDI settings, and I chose 16. MIDI through, I turned it off. And I have MIDI over USB because I'm still playing with that, but you don't have to have it on. All right. So the first thing I did was I found out that if you just go to pedal board and just use that, if you set your GT1000 to pedal board mode, you can do direct mapping of each one of these switches to equivalent of all 5 of these here. So you do that by going under Control Expression Settings. And the first thing you do on this first window is they might have something pre-populated. So just go, and I select this from, say, patch 10. I just turned it all to off. Assign, this is my assignments that I've done currently. I'll show you how I changed that. And you can take a look at various pages in that. And then I have all the LEDs on the GT1000 turned off, because since there's no asynchronous there's no back and forth between what the state of the switch is when you press it and the LED turns on. You can press it multiple times and it just toggles the LED switch on and off. But it doesn't accurately reflect the state of the Quad Cortex's LED switch. So it's just kind of useless, and I'm not really looking at it. I'm looking at the Quad Cortex, so I have all those disabled. So essentially, if you go to Assign and you take a look, you have a target category, and all these are set to, like for instance, this is set to distortion 1, right? So I can actually go down here and select that all the way down at the bottom and just call MIDI. And this allows you to either do MIDI CC or MIDI PC, and the Quad Cortex uses MIDI CC as its receive. And then you can choose the button that you want. So You know, on the GT1000 you have num 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then you have bank down, bank up, control 1, 2, and 3, and then you have your expression pedal here. And so you can see all those here, num 1s through num 5s on the bottom. Current number, that is a software, it's not really a source, I believe. Bank down, bank up. Here are the controls 1 through 3. 4, 5, 6, 7 are external controller switches you can plug into the back of the GT1000. Then you have your Expression 1 software, you know, a couple expression pedals you can plug in, internal wave pedal, input level. And then you can also just call direct CC sources. That is received, but you know, don't worry about it. And I have all these set for toggle, because if you have momentary, it only works as long as you hold down the button. If you release the button, the command goes away. So on page 2, so if you close this, if you look at page 2, you'll see the actual values that I have set up for in the MIDI PC, which, so we won't really care about this. So page 2 is your MIDI PC. You know, what kind of interpolation curves it can do, wave rate, etc. So we'll ignore that for now. Page 3 actually has the channel, the MIDI command that I've programmed into it, the CC min, the CC max, and the MIDI PC, bank, MSB, etc. Least significant bit, most significant bit for the banks. So basically it's everything up through the CC value max that we're concerned with. So if you go to the Quad Cortex manual, they give a whole bunch of incoming MIDI reserved CC lists. So for instance, if you go up here, this one right here has MIDI channel 16, which is what I'm communicating with the Quad Cortex. And then the MIDI CC number 39, if you look at the table, it says that this is enable bypass for foot switch E on the Quad Cortex right here. So if you program this to send the MIDI CC command 39, 0 to 127, when you press that, it will toggle this on the Quad Cortex. And so if you would like to see, I have it in scene mode. If I press, and likewise, I also have this set for switch F. So if I press this button here, F on the, or 2 on the GT1000, F should light up. And indeed it does. So I have 1 through 4 mapped through E through H, and I have bank 1 as A, bank 2 as B, or bank up as B, control 1 as C, and control 2 as D. And this allows me to basically select any of these foot switches. Now, I don't really use bank up and bank down on the foot switch. I can do that by just, you know, selecting which bank I would like. So if I have, you know, if I go to factory libraries and just choose a bank, I can choose this Brit here. And I have the Brit in. So what I've done is I've set control 3 up here to basically send a direct MIDI command. And that basically is to toggle between the scene mode, the stomp mode, and the scene mode back and forth. Because again, I don't need to toggle to the preset, the bank here, the presets. I don't need to do that. I can do that through the Quad Cortex's screen. So I just have it switch between stomp. So that way here, I can say, oh, okay, I can stomp and select and turn off, you know, the amp. I can turn off this guy here. I can turn on and off this guy just by hitting these buttons. Well, you can see if I go over here to the GT1000, I have control of all these as well. I can go down here and select, anything that has a highlight here I can select, turn on and off these functions here. So, and then I have number 5 set up here to, when you're in stop mode, if there is a looper, you can turn on the looper just by hitting 5 here. So let's go and take a look at that. So go over here, my presets, and right here we see I have a looper in there. So if I just hit this, that will open up the looper. And then once the looper is open, I can just do all these, the same function, just like you normally would. I hit 1, and that arms for recording. And there we go. So the only thing I don't have is the tuner set up to a stomp. And you can do the tuner directly on the Quad Cortex as normal. And then hit any of these things to escape. And then if you hit 5 again, that turns off the looper. So it's kind of cool to be able to have control of the Quad Cortex. One last thing is I have the expression pedal mapped as well. And that is done down here. So CC value minimum, or sorry, this one right here I have set up for the control 3. This allows me to toggle between scene and stomp modes. So 1 is scene and 2 is stomp, and you can just toggle between the two. If you go up here to this guy right here, number 11, this is actually my expression pedal because the MIDI CC number is 1 and the CC max value goes from 0 to 127. So if you edit that, you can see that I've chosen the target category is MIDI. The source is expression pedal 1, and it's a momentary because if you do toggle on this, it'll just toggle between its max and minimum values. So you want this to actually, be continuous. So MIDI channel 16, MIDI controller, CC number is 1, 0 to 127. And you can do other things. You can change curves and stuff on it, but I'm not even going to deal with that. And so if we go over to the Quad Cortex and, we choose something that has, I don't know, what is that? That's the wah pedal. So let's assign that to an expression pedal. We're going to assign it to 1. And as you can see, as I move this up and down, you can see it. It looks like it's laggy because you're assigning it, but once you actually have it done, you can see that it responds very quickly and very well. So if I turn that on, you can hear it. And there it is. So essentially, I have control of the Quad Cortex with a very expensive and underutilized pedal. Now, of course, the Boss GT1000 does some pretty impressive stuff itself, and I'm going to be looking into various ways of routing signals between the GT1000 and the Quad Cortex, using maybe some of the effects from the GT1000 into the effects loop of the Quad Cortex and seeing what cool things I can get out of it. But I thought this might be interesting for the group, and hopefully you guys found this useful. Have a good day.